Bakri was born in Sudan in 1992. At the age of 3, he was forced to move into a refugee camp with his parents due to ongoing conflict in his country. The conditions were adverse and there was often a lack of food. At the age of 7, Bakri and his parents migrated to Australia as refugees. His official schooling began in Year 1, where he attended a low socio-economic primary school in New South Wales. Both of Bakri's parents worked long hours and they weren't adept English speakers, which meant that Bakri was required to take on adult tasks at home, such as translating and completing government forms. During school, Bakri was provided with an education that was equal to that which was provided to others. He was provided with some extra English support in his first year of schooling. Bakri's grades were mostly average in nature. He often struggled with written activities as his own country's language was mainly oral-based. Bakri often displayed immature behaviour, seemed withdrawn and had very few friends. This resulted in some bullying from his peers, which made Bakri further dislike school and reduced his self-esteem. He also felt as though his teachers didn't expect him to do well. In Year 10, Bakri left school to work in a factory with his dad. He knew his grades would be too low to gain entry into university, and besides, he was not too fond of school itself. In Bakri's story in the context of Brenner's social ecology model, there are a number of factors which have had an immense influence on his development and the overall outcome of his schooling. In Bakri's microsystem, which is the face-to-face settings that he is exposed to, the main negative influences include factors associated with his parents and his schooling. With Bakri's parents having poor English language skills, he was required to take on an adult role at home. When children are required to take on adult tasks and problems, they are likely to behave as if they are younger than they actually are in other settings. This explains Bakri's immature behaviour, which may have also indirectly affected his school achievement. Bakri also had no prior schooling experience before studying Year 1 at primary school. Extensive research suggests that educational experience prior to beginning formal schooling helps to enhance social skills, school readiness, and improves overall learning. Bakri's lack of exposure to early education is therefore likely to have a negative impact on his development. In Bakri's mesosystem, which is 2 microsystems in interaction, the negative effects relate to Bakri's parents' interaction with his school. Bakri's parents both worked long hours and had poor English language skills, which most likely hindered them from becoming more involved in his schooling. This is likely to have negatively impacted on Bakri's academic development, and it is known that an effective homeschool relationship where parents play an active role is able to positively influence learning. In Bakri's exosystem, which refers to the settings that indirectly affect him, the negative influences include government laws and media's portrayal of refugees. Currently, there are no laws in New South Wales which articulate the educational needs of refugee children. Bakri's emotional development and sense of belonging was obviously in deficit as he disliked school, was often withdrawn and displayed poor behaviour. These are common in refugee children, especially those who have been through traumatic experiences. The fact that there were no laws in place which require school authorities to address these issues could only have had an adverse effect on his schooling experience. Refugees are also often portrayed negatively in the media, which can influence the way the general community views them. This may have indirectly contributed to the bullying that Bakri experienced, which in turn likely contributed to his dislike of school. In Bakri's macrosystem, which refers to the broad societal or cultural context, a negative influence includes his family's low socio-economic status. A low socio-economic status is known to detrimentally impact a child's performance at school by reducing their capacity to learn. This is because families with a low socio-economic status generally have less quality healthcare, fewer resources, and lower overall standard of living. These factors are all known to work against a child when they are in the process of attaining an education. Although it may have seemed appropriate that Bakri's school gave him an equal schooling experience to that of other students, it in fact was not. An equal schooling experience is one where teachers provide students with the same resources and opportunities regardless of their race, gender, religion or other difference. However, Bakri seemed to have more risk factors and needs that required to be addressed than that of other students. Examples of these include he had experienced a traumatic childhood in a refugee camp, he had arrived to a foreign country with his family, he needed to learn the home language of his new country, He had a low socio-economic status. His own culture's language was largely oral-based than print-based, and he was a refugee, which was a term that was often negatively portrayed in the media. What Bakri needed was an equitable education, which meant providing him with extra provisions regarding what he needed to be successful in school. This practice, which is known as social justice, would have ensured that he had opportunity equal to others to reach his potential. There are a number of other specific actions that the school could have taken to provide Bakri with more equitable schooling experiences and to reduce the degree of risk present in his personal circumstances. Bakri's grades were average in nature. He was an English language learner and he struggled with print-based activities throughout his schooling. These factors signify that Bakri required additional support to ensure that he was able to reach his full potential. Bakri's school provided little assistance to him beyond his first few years of schooling, although it was necessary. This may be due to monetary reasons, as a school in a low socio-economic area may not have received the required funding to meet the diverse needs of all its students. This extra support would have also increased his level of resistance, as he would have felt that the adults around him believed in his potential for improvement. Bakri's teachers had low expectations of him, which is highly common in low socio-economic schools. He was also most likely taught by teachers with lesser skills than those in high socio-economic schools. These factors are both said to be detrimental to the overall educational outcomes of students who are exposed to them. The school could have set high expectations for all students despite their personal circumstances. High expectations may also have contributed to Bakri's overall level of resistance. Bakri displayed immature behaviour, often seen withdrawn at school, and experienced a traumatic childhood in a refugee camp. He also lacked a sense of belonging, as evident in his dislike of school and his few social relationships. Bakri's school did little to address these emotional and personal issues that are commonly associated with being a refugee. This may be due to the experience levels of the teachers or due to the fact that there are no laws in place in New South Wales which identify the need for schools to properly address these matters. Apart from meeting Bakri's personal needs in the appropriate ways, the school should have also addressed the issue of belongingness by helping to create an accepting and caring school community that was free from bullying and negative connotations about refugees. Having a sense of belonging would have increased Bakri's resilience and reduced or eliminated some of the risk factors in his life. There are a number of factors in the lives of all students which work against their educational achievement. These are influences beyond their control and must be properly identified by schools so that they can be effectively addressed. If not, students like Bakri will be unable to reach their full potential, which will adversely affect their life changes. Currently in Australia, students from refugee backgrounds may be missing out on an equitable education due to a lack of funding, low expectations, poor teaching and insufficient legislation. Refugees must be provided with additional resources in schools so as to ensure that they aren't unfairly disadvantaged by their backgrounds.